really confused me and got my tits as well is, ouch, this is not a £2,000 camera. It has a fantastic sensor. Nikon sucks balls at it. Next thing. Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to be doing a review of a second-hand, a Nikon D600. This has already been superseded, as in better cameras have already come out, called the Nikon D610, which is a little bit of an upgrade, and then there was the D750, which you could possibly consider still an upgrade for this. So if you want the quick version of this review, what I would say is that this camera has a fantastic sensor inside here. The actual images that you are able to create with this camera is stunning. No questions about it. The ISO performance, amazing. Nothing to complain about there whatsoever. In terms of autofocus as well, I've had fantastic results from it as well. No, like people are saying, it's a bit slow or it's not very accurate. If you're using the right lenses, I have not seen any problem whatsoever with the autofocus capabilities. Generally, I shoot a lot with autofocus single, not continuous, and I usually do it with a single point as well. So I'm like, straight on the eye, straight on the eye, straight on the eye, rather than 3D autofocusing. So possibly not the best examples there, but in terms of just spot focusing on eyes with a good lens, it's fantastic. There's nothing really to complain about as well. In terms of video capabilities, you've got 1080p at 30 frames a second, 720p at 60 frames a second, all very good. So, full on mega praise for this camera. Also, if you're buying it second hand, first of all, the first thing, when this first came out, its price was marketed at £2,000. Oh, that I wouldn't recommend. Buying this camera brand new when it first came out is really a fool's errand. It's been advertised quite a few times, going, only £1,999. You're like, oh, ouch, this is not a £2,000 camera. There's a £2,000 sensor, yeah, but camera-wise, absolutely not. And what I mean by that is it's a camera as in terms of its body, its ergonomics, its layout, its button design, all that kind of stuff is far cheaper than the £2,000 original trademark. So if you can get this camera nowadays for £1,000, you're in more of half price. You're in more of the price range. What I have seen, you can get these all the way down to about £750 for a good condition D600. When they first came out, there was a problem with them. There was oil spots being splattered up by the shutter mechanism. Not necessarily the mirror, but the actual shutter mechanism were splattering oil spots, which were seen in the top right-hand corner, if that makes sense. Top right-hand corner, that's actually left-hand. Top left-hand corner of the sensor where it was kind of gathering up there. That was not so easy to remove with sensor cleaning fluids, stuff like that. And a lot of them had to be sent back for readjustments or getting a new shutter release going on here. So double check the date that your camera was created. This one is number 6080699. The first two numbers are about the country where it's from and all that kind of stuff. But in general, the second batch, because again, these are all just made in some factory in Thailand, and all it takes is one guy to go into that factory and sneeze, and suddenly 1,000, 2,000 cameras are totally screwed. Additionally, you don't see any oil spots on the images if you're shooting at an aperture which is bigger than f8. Depending on your lens, depending on the scene, pretty much all my cameras have got little bits of dust and all that kind of stuff, and with this there's little bits of dust as well, but but the oil, everyone complained about, it was only visible if you're shooting at like f22. Again, I did a serious clean with this, and I made sure that in the camera there's the cleaning function that goes on, hypersonic cleaning function. It just shakes the sensor really quickly. Doing that every time I turn it on and turning it off, and that seems to have just completely eradicated any sort of oil spots or possible oil spots there. Also getting yourself a good good rocket blower I would highly recommend as well. So not just your simple blower, a rocket blower. This one puts in a lot of power into your sensor there. So again, dust, oil, different things. Dust, easy to get rid of. Oil, a bit more sticky, and some cameras had to be sent back. However, I think once the kind of problem was announced or realised, Nikon produced the Nikon D610 and said, oh yeah, it's a whole new camera. Bullshit, it wasn't. But also I think they just made sure that all the new D600s that were made didn't have that problem, because they just couldn't afford people constantly sending it back. Or it may have just been that the actual shops themselves sent all their batches back to get recalibrated and all that kind of stuff. Now, so that's the oil spot issue. That's not too much of a problem. The problems with this though, things that get right on my tits. First of all, okay, so same things that I have problems with live view going on here all the time. The exposure compensation is different, or the exposure metering is different whether you are, so here
looks
this
like
camera is saying f4 100th of a second. We're going to live view.
The same problem with
we're
the
in
different
auto ISO.
exposure
Let's change
settings
the auto ISO.
in
So
live
on the top you can see, you can see that it's saying, well, I've done a video already where the exposure changes whenever you change from
exposure,
from looking through the eyehole, eyepiece, to turning on the live view. You get a different exposure compensation.
Okay, interesting. Let's just see that again. I'll show you that one. That's what it's saying is inadequate exposure. Okay, fine. But then, if I press a live view in a second, watch what happens to the settings. So we're around about 120th of a second. Now we're down to 20th of a second. Completely different exposure settings for what it considers to be the same photo in either live view or without live view on. Does anybody know what that is about?
If you're turning on the live view, you get a different exposure compensation. Secondly, thing that's so stupid and no apparent reason, this camera doesn't have exposure simulation on this. Why not? So in other words, it will just constantly show me the best exposure that it thinks is necessary. If I put it into manual mode and I go to dark thing, it brightens up. It's constantly changing its exposure, which is annoying. So if I change the aperture, which I can do, and if I change the shutter, nothing. So I'm at 640th of a second, f16. If I take a photo, it's totally black. That's what it's meant to be. Why am I not seeing that? And in some cameras, like, oh, it's just a setting, Dom. No, this doesn't have that setting. This doesn't have exposure simulation, which is really annoying. Next thing gets right on my tits. Let's say we stick it into video. So you change from photos to camera. You take it, you just move that bit, and you're into video. Now here it seems like I'm getting exposure simulation, but for some reason I can only change the shutter speed. I can't change aperture. I can still take a photo, it's still totally black, but for some reason I can't change aperture. For me to change aperture, I have to turn that off, look up here, see where I change it, go back here, now it's changed. Go, oh, it's still not bright enough. Turn it off, change it back here, turn it back on, do it. And then what's extra annoying is the fact that if I turn this off, it's in the different settings for photo. So in other words, here it's saying 30th of a second, f3.8. I turn that off. If I just go to info, we're at 640th of a second, f3.2. She's like, this isn't helping here. Back to here. So the whatever Nikon were thinking about in terms of their software firmware guff inside of how you change the shutter, the aperture, the exposure and all that kind of stuff in video or photos, it's nonsense. It's just crap. There's no way to say, oh well no, it's a good feature because there's no good reason for it. It's just like Nikon didn't really know how to set it up. Canon, on the other hand, does that with ease, no problem, fantastically. Nikon sucks balls at it. Next thing, also, so what that also means is if you're doing exposure, well, you can do exposure simulation, if it's like a flash on top, you're just full on guessing what is, so that's why you have to do serious chimping with this. Chimping is when you take a photo and then you have to look at the photo on the back of your screen. So it's, or you're, yeah, trying to assess by all it's got is this tiny exposure meter reading going on there. So if I change the shutter speed down to somewhere that seems like there should be, now it's slightly moved into the middle, but still that's a tiny little thing in a tiny little place. If I turn live view off and turn info on, yeah, we've got it up there. However, the annoying thing is we don't have it on the top. I barely ever turn this screen on the back. This is a very valuable place, and annoyingly, it doesn't have the exposure meter reading on the top. So that is something, as another thing, which I found incredibly annoying. So, exposure meter reading, not there. Exposure simulation, not there. Aperture changing in video, doesn't work. Quiet mode, I would say is better than the Nikon D600, but still fairly loud if we compare that to single. Now, the idea of the quiet mode is the fact that you can take a photo, then walk away and release it. How is the noise of somebody initially taking that sound and then walking away, stamp, 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 stamp? How that is of any way meant to be more silent or quieter than just actually doing a quiet photo? I don't know. That's so quiet mode, total nonsense. I do very much like it's got a double SD card slots in there, so you can have like 60 gigabytes worth of 232 gigabyte cards in there, fast ones for fairly cheap. That I do like a lot. It also means you can put video onto one, photos on the other, RAW on one, JPEG on another, or just full on backup, so your double storage going on there. That is very, very handy. I think that's great. So certainly in some cases you'll be doing photos and videos. In some cases you can just go take out one memory card which has got the videos, stick that in your computer, get that downloading while you're still taking photos going onto the other memory card. Very handy going on there. Another thing which isn't as good as you would hope is, let's say we're in photo mode and we go to live view. Now there's lots of different options of what you can see in here. There I've just got the grid and the focus spot. And if you press the info button, you get different settings. So here, if I press the info button, oh good, no information. Focus on this, focus on this. If I press again, I've got the lines, and if I press again, ooh, I've got the spirit level, as it were, which is quite good. It gives you left and right, and up and down. However, what you don't get is that in the eyepiece. So with my Panasonic GH4, if I look at the eyepiece, I've got a spirit level saying left and right and tilting forward and back. This one only gives you a left and right. I wonder if I can actually show you that. So there, you can see there's possibly a little line. If I tilt this way, see it's tilting more that way. Then if I go the other way, there. So it's just at the bottom. You don't have one at the side or the other side. Oh my god, it's so difficult to show you that. So that's not that useful. There's quite a lot of shots that I'll be shooting here and I can go, right, great, I've fixed that. However, tilting forward and backward, I don't know if it's level or not, which is a bit annoying. The other thing which really confused me and got my tits as well is if, like, a lot of people like this thing called back button focusing. So this button, which is currently an auto exposure lock or autofocus lock, you can do it so it's an AF on button, so you can set that on. And if I'm taking a photo, I just press it at the back and then I take a photo. And that's a good thing. Sometimes it's easier to have, especially if you're doing a lot of stuff via the live view. You can look at there, do that. It helps a little bit. However, what happens is that it also disengages the half press shutter autofocus, which is annoying. I found that very annoying. I was like, hold on, why is it not working? Oh, it's only that way then. So if you're wanting in video to have autofocus lock on or AF on button working, but in photos you're doing it all with your eye, then that's something which just got a little bit confusing and a little bit annoying for me. Let me know if you've experienced that at all, but it's a feature which I would like it to be able to have that as an AF on button and yet still be able to use the half press of the shutter as an autofocus as well. Not unlike what the Canon does. If I half press here, you can see the focus goes on, but also if I press the AF on button. So that's double features, which I think is really good. Hello? Yeah, that's me. Have you come? First floor up.